then we'll have Jane Davis introduce our speaker.
I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today, Melissa Smith, the Executive Director of the York County SPCA. As a member of the Board of Directors of the SPCA, I have worked with Melissa for a number of years and have been amazed at her unflagging energy, her unwavering dedication to animal welfare and that of their human companions, and her ability to maintain an optimistic attitude even in the most adverse of situations. Melissa was born in York, grew up in Dallastown, and received her education in humane work from the University of Columbia, Missouri, and Penn State University. She joined the York County SPCA in 1989 and held several positions before becoming Executive Director in 2007. Her particular areas of interest within animal welfare are collaborating with other local organizations concerning the link between animal abuse and domestic violence, protection for outside dogs, and educating children on the importance of compassion towards animals. Melissa's presentation today will outline the programs and services of the York County SPCA that help both animals and people, and a new project about which all of us at the SPCA are very excited, the addition of a new high-volume, low-cost spay-neuter clinic to address the problem of animal overpopulation in York County. Please join me in welcoming Melissa.
Thank you, Jane. Well, hello. I am so happy to be here today. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about my time with the York County SPCA. I started with the shelter, as Jane said, back in 1989, so I'm working on nearly 24 years. I began my career as a kennel technician, which was just an entry-level position, taking care of the animals at the shelter. And I took great pride in that position, and it was very rewarding for me. I did that job for about 6 years, and then I became a Humane Society police officer, which is better known nowadays as an animal cop, if you watch Animal Planet. And at that time, I was amongst a very small group of people that were the first to be sworn in to enforce animal cruelty in the County of York as Humane Society police officers. And I have to say that the 5+ years that I performed those duties were probably amongst the most difficult of my career. As you can imagine, being an animal lover and then investigating cruelty to animals and some of the things that we have to endure, again, it was very difficult for me, and I found I had trouble coping with my emotions and managing through those, but and certainly there will be those cases that will haunt me for the rest of my life, indeed. So moving on, I then became operations manager, and I did that job for 6 years, and then I moved on to executive director. And it was during my transition from operations manager to ED that we actually transitioned our location from Thomasville to Annicksville, where we are today. So enough about me. Let me tell you about the love of my life, the York County SPCA. Such an amazing organization. I wish that everyone knew what I knew and could see what I see on a daily basis of what happens at our shelter. Just these little fantastic things that happen on a daily basis, whether it's returning a lost pet to their owner that has been desperately looking for them. And by the way, that happened over 400 times in 2012. Or providing life-saving care to an animal that's been hit by a car. And we certainly know that many shelters do not have the resources we do, so we recognize how very lucky we are. Or matching an animal with the perfect home. That's just the best thing. And you know, it's really those things that keep us going, because let's face it, folks, we deal with some really difficult situations, life and death situations. many times on a daily basis. So, when you think of the York County SPCA, I want you to remember this, that we are not just an animal organization. Obviously, the animals are our primary focus, but we are very much a people organization as well. And here's how. So we have a Safe Pet program, if that works from here. Yes. We have a Safe Pet program, which provides temporary shelter for pets of victims of domestic violence. If an abuse victim has to leave their abuser and is seeking housing with maybe Access York or Safe Home of Hanover, we will take their animal in for 30 days at no charge. And this undoubtedly makes our community safer for both pets and people. And we often deal with animals that have fallen victim to domestic violence. And a very timely situation just occurred Sunday evening. I had received a call from a Newberry Township detective, and he was on scene of a domestic assault and sexual assault. And lo and behold, the dog in the home was limping around. And he found out from the abuse victim that the abuser a week prior had kicked the dog and that no one had provided any veterinary care for the dog. So as the victim went to the hospital and the abuser went to prison, we went to the scene and picked up the dog. And I'm proud to report that we now have custody of this dog. He is a 10-month-old chocolate lab named Raven, and he is just fantastic. As of last night, he was receiving the orthopedic surgery that he needed, and he will then go into foster care with one of our foster families and get his rehabilitation, and then he'll be available for adoption. However, I have the sneaking suspicion that someone at this shelter might be adopting him, because we fell in love with him very, very quickly, as that often happens, of course. So, why is this program important? Because 71% of women entering shelters reported that their abuser had hurt or killed a family pet. We strongly urge abuse victims to never leave their pets behind. Batterers will use animals to control their victims and coerce children into keeping silent about abuse. Why should you be concerned about animal abuse? Because 70% of animal abusers have records of other crimes. And animal abuse is often a precursor to violence towards people. Sadly, many of the tragic school shootings, those teenagers had histories of animal abuse as well. So, it is very important that we teach children compassion towards animals, simply because a child living in the United States is more likely to have a pet than a live-in father. We have also expanded our Safe Pet program to partner with the American Red Cross to take pets from victims of natural or man-made disasters. For example, you may recall the house fire in Hanover last week. We are housing those 3 pets, 2 cats and a dog. And in 2012, we helped 42 pets and their families through this program. I'd also like to mention the connection between bullying and animal abuse. Let me tell you about this little sweetheart on the screen. Her name is PDJ, and she came to our shelter as a stray, but prior to coming to us, she had endured horrific abuse. I don't know if you can tell from the photo, but her ears had been severed, her tail had been broken, and she was in very bad shape when she came to us. Her injuries would suggest that her perpetrators were probably a group of young people, sadly. But she has become the mascot for an exciting partnership with the Susan Burns Health Education Center, which teaches kids about bullying. And we really feel, I feel, that kids can relate to PBJ because, let's face it, she's been bullied as well. So when she goes out to schools, I like to make the connection that kids can really relate to her and what she's been through if they've been bullied in their life. And we've really had a great reaction to sweet little PBJ. Teens who engage in school bullying are twice as likely to participate in animal abuse. And both bullying and animal abuse are indicators of a lack of empathy and often lead to further violence. There's a photo of our Humane Society police officer. Her name is Nicole Boyer, and she does a fantastic job. And I'd like to just mention the work of our Humane Department. Nicole is a busy girl. We investigate approximately 1,200 complaints every year. And those are just the ones that are reported. There's a lot, sadly, that go unreported in our community. But out of the 1,200 complaints that Nicole investigates, she brings in literally hundreds of animals to us every year that have been abused and neglected. And she also issues dozens of citations for cruelty to animals as well. This is a service that we provide free to York County. And while many of these complaints are intentional abuse, there are many that are just an opportunity for us to educate people onto how they can better take care of their pets and how we can help them do that. And we often do. We have a Chows for Pals program, which is essentially a food bank for pet food. And we will provide that pet food for needy families. And we also provide free spay-neuter for anyone that Nicole has been visiting. So let's talk about spay-neuter. Pictured there is Dr. Kelly Bergman. She is our lead veterinarian at the shelter. And she's doing a surgery right there in one of our smaller surgery suites. We currently provide 5,000 spay-neuter surgeries per year. And while we are very proud of our efforts, we have a plan for something bigger and better. So enter our new high-volume spay-neuter clinic, which we are so excited about. This is a photo of our current facility in Emmetsville. You see the little red dot? That is the north wing. There is our current veterinary facility where we provide spay-neuter for the public. We do employ 4 part-time veterinarians. We receive approximately 7,000 animals every year. And of those 7,000 animals, 3,000 result in successful adoption stories. Just have a couple cute little examples here. This is Pharaoh. He was a collie. He is a collie that was adopted and returned to our shelter by 3 different families. However, now he is in the right home for him because, as you can see, he has become a competition agility dog, and he's also a herder. And this really demonstrates the importance of the work that we try to do with matching the right pet with the right family. There's little baby girl. What a sweetheart she is. You may remember her story was in the paper. She had been found in a trash can in Bance Park. Her injuries were so life-threatening. It's just a miracle that she survived. But she, after several surgeries, she went into a foster home. Ironically, the same foster home is going to be taking on the Chocolate Lab tomorrow. And they ended up adopting her. So, it doesn't get any better than that. But everything that we are doing, it's still not enough. Every year, hundreds of animals are euthanized at our shelter. It is not easy for us to talk about. It's not easy for me to talk about. And it's certainly not easy for our staff to cope with. Euthanasia is not only an animal tragedy, it is a human tragedy as well. Many of the dogs that we receive are unwanted and neglected pit bulls, like this little girl here with her family. But even more overwhelming than the pit bull situation is the overwhelming problem of unwanted cats and kittens. During kitten season, which grows every year, right now it is probably from April through November, it is not unusual for our shelter to receive over 30 cats and kittens per day. So please imagine how overwhelming that is to see these cats coming through our doors, knowing that we don't have the space for them. There are not enough homes for them. It's devastating. And many of these kittens are sick and orphaned or underage, but many of them are simply victims of overpopulation. skip forward there. Let me go back. Okay, let's take a look at our numbers here. This is a comparison from 2007 versus 2011. The blue is our incoming animals, and you can see that number has nearly doubled. Green is the adoptions, which has stayed the same. And tan is euthanasia, which has also nearly doubled. Folks, these numbers tell our story, that despite our current spay-neuter efforts, there are still an enormous amount of unwanted animals that are born in our community. So with our high-volume spay-neuter clinic, our target population will be outdoor and feral cats, that little cutie right there, and pit bulls. We currently provide a low-cost program for outdoor and feral cats, and we spay or neuter all pit bulls for free. So here comes the good part. We really feel that we have found a solution. It is a partnership with the Humane Alliance in North Carolina to implement a high-volume spay-neuter clinic. The Humane Alliance is dedicated to helping shelters reduce euthanasia through aggressive spay-neuter. And we will be the first Humane Alliance clinic in Pennsylvania. The Humane Alliance saw a 75% decrease in euthanasia after 10 years with the implementation of their clinic. Obviously, that's where we want to be. Oops. Okay, so there is just a second photo of the Humane Alliance. We've actually been to their facility twice in North Carolina, and we will be going back later this year for the training to open our new clinic. That's just a current plot of our land. If you can see, the two darker blue areas are where we will be adding space. The larger one is the new clinic, and we're also adding on a little small dog area. If you've ever been to our shelter, you know that our small dogs are in one of our cat condos in crates, and that's not really an ideal situation for them, so they're going to get their own little kennel space, which we are all very excited about. So here is an interior overview. This is our current veterinary wing up here. The space beside it is our current garage that we are going to be transforming into a lobby area for the clinic, and then we're also making a new incoming area for our animals. And then the dark brown is where the new clinic space will be, and then of course the small dogs down there at the bottom. And this is just a breakdown of animal living space. The darker brown is where all of our doggies live, and then the lighter tan is where our cats live. And truth be told, there should probably be some tan back in here in the administrative office because we all have cats in our offices. Okay, so we will measure the success of our clinic when we increase our spay-neuter capacity from originally 5,000 up to 8,000. Which will decrease our incoming animals and ultimately reduce euthanasia. And let's end with this little snuggle bug. This is Boomer, and he grew up to be the York Revolution's mascot. So while his life took a very extraordinary turn, certainly his beginnings were very ordinary. He came to the SPCA as an unwanted litter with his mother, who, believe it or not, is a pit bull. Now, clearly she was hanging out with a golden retriever, but that's another story. So, I want you to know that we will not rest. I will not rest until someday every adoptable animal that comes through our doors finds a home. And we know this is a huge goal, and it will take years to achieve, and we can't do it alone. But someday, my friends, someday we'll reach that goal. That's everything I have for today. Any questions for me? Yes.
I assume just about every community has a leash law, but are you aware of any communities that have laws on feral cats, allowing cats to roam?
Well, yes, you're right. As far as dogs, that's actually a state dog law for dogs, but there are very few places that govern cats. I know that there were a couple boroughs that had tried it, but it's very hard to enforce. But there are some places that if you are feeding an outdoor cat, you have to at least make sure that it is spayed or neutered. And it's funny to note that many people think that maybe dogs are the biggest problem as far as strays, but that's not the case. I can tell you, certainly at our shelter, cats are triple the volume that we receive in dogs. So cats are really our main problem, feral cats and outdoor cats. Of course, we have the stray dog issue and the pit bull problem that I mentioned, but outdoor cats it's a biggie. It's a biggie, so that's why our goal is really to target those outdoor cats, which will alleviate the plethora of unwanted kittens coming in the door.
Could you please explain what the relationship is, if any, between the ASPCA and your organization?
I would love to. There is none. And that's a great question. I'm glad that you asked that. A lot of people will say to us, "Oh, I saw your commercial on television. It's it's heart-wrenching, and I made a donation," and that's fantastic. But it went to New York. So each shelter does work independently, even from here to Harrisburg to Lancaster to Adams County. We all work very independently. Now, the ASPCA does have a couple national programs. Whereas if we were to take on a huge cruelty investigation with hundreds of animals, they have some programs where they can help with that. But by and large, there is no affiliation, so thank you for that question. Oh, yes, the question.
I mean, when they're asked.
Oh, okay, yes, okay. Yes, ma'am.
How do you account for the adoption rate remaining the same over time? What do you make of that?
Well, I think that some people are afraid to come to the SPCA because they think it's too sad. They're afraid what they might see might be upsetting to them. So I think that we need to get more traffic coming through the shelter. We do have some satellite shelters across the county where we take our cats out into different areas just to get them more exposure. But I think that I account for that because of the awareness, and we just need to do better with awareness and getting more traffic coming in to our facility. Yes, sir?
It strikes me that the penalties for animal abusers are not much more than a slap on the wrist. Can you comment on that?
I can comment on that, yes. The question was referencing the penalties for cruelty to animals. Most of the investigations that we have result in summary offenses. And that would be lack of veterinary care, not providing proper shelter, proper water and food, sustenance for the animal. And that can result in a fine of from $50 to $750 and or 90 days in jail. I can tell you it is rare that we see any jail time. Furthermore, there is prohibition of ownership, whereas we can ask a magistrate to not allow someone to take on another pet if we've been out to their home for cruelty, but that's only for 90 days. So on day 91, they can go right back out again and get another animal. And that's just beyond frustrating. Yes, sir.
What's your process for the feral cats? Do you go out to homeowners to call you about feral cats? Do you go get them? Do you ask people to capture them? How does that work?
Well, the process for feral cats is going to be changing a little bit. Right now, we have humane box traps that we offer for folks, and then they can set them on their property and bring them in through appointments. But with our new spay-neuter clinic, we are going to be relying on the mobile service. And we did provide our mobile service temporarily with the help of the county commissioners, and we were able to reach many, many feral cats. So moving forward, we will also be providing that mobile service as well. And that will be very helpful for people who have what we call colonies of cats. Because if we have a van, then we can capture 15 or 20 at a time and bring them in for a mass spay day. Yes?
Do you have any animals besides dogs and cats?
Yes, we do. We have actually a whole small animal room dedicated to rabbits and guinea pigs and hamsters. And at any given time, that room is packed full of little critters. So even if you're not looking for a dog or a cat, we have something that could make you smile. We also have over a dozen horses in our care right now as well. And that's something that people don't realize, that we take care of horses. You know, we always have investigated equine cruelty, but a couple years ago we had a large seizure and we took in over 20 horses at that time, and many of them are still with us. So we do have horses available for adoption as well.
Melissa, you went through a lot of figures, but